Welcome to this, an ArseBrothers Rantcast, an ArseBros O.G. And Toby and I are back. Oh, that's gone everywhere. Fucking $32 a slab, Toby. They're shit beers, Hollandia. They're shit beers, but at $32 a slab.
You can tell we've been in lockdown for too long. I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's all like just dirt cheap Dutch beer.
Cheap Dutch beer. So this slab with the giant size Bogan beers, $50, pal.
Yeah, 30. I walked into Dan Murph's, there's like all these good beers. And obviously, you know, I own and run a bar, or I did, before I was unmercilessly shut down by COVID and the communist state of Victoria. But, you know, so you would think that someone who sells premium products just goes out and buys premium beers. Not for me. Straight to the pyramid in Dan Murphy's of cheap piss. And I'm like, $32 a slab. I'll drink a shit ton of them. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And what a way to start the show.
Yeah, what a way. In saying that, it's so light. It's only 2 standard drinks for a giant beer. So anyway.
Oh, is it?
For my one.
I did drink like 11 of these the other night and tell Victoria I was amazed how sober I was. And she told me, you're not sober, you're drunk, you think you're sober. So who knows? But viewers, this is not the cheap beer review show. This is the ArseBros O.G. This is me and Toby doing our post-match reviews. We're coming to you on a Sunday in Australia. It's a Sunday here, which is very, very rare. So I assume as a result, we're going to have no live listeners because it's like 5:30 p.m. on a Sunday and it's like America and the UK are all asleep or elsewhere. But we don't really care. Man City game has been and has gone. And, you know, for a start, Toby, I'd just like to say that I put a message up in our messenger group and I said, just wait for everyone's fucking heads to explode on Twitter when Thomas Partey does not play. And I was correct. And as a result, Toby, I wasn't in any way upset or in any way, you know, I didn't have any emotion towards it when I saw it. When I saw everyone putting up their starting teams and somehow miraculously we were going to move to a 4-3-3 with a guy who had one training session, change the whole thing and then go to Man City and put it on them. People were tipping Arsenal to win 3-1. Partey's exactly what we've been missing. And no, Toby, it was 3 at the back, Xhaka and Ceballos, David Luiz in there, and much the same as what we had seen before. Any thoughts? I thought we'd get that out the way early because there's not going to be much talk about him otherwise.
No. I think completely to be expected. I mean, as we know, we're very structured in our system, and it's very unlikely that with one training session or however many days, you're going to have a brand new player coming in to that system where it's so paramount that we don't lose the ball in that territory. Players are so structured in what they do in our team that it was never likely that he was going to come along and we were going to throw everything.
Throw caution to the wind.
That's the phrase I was looking for. Caution to the wind, and we were going to win 7-1. Now, the only criticism I would have is that we had to wait till 80 minutes for him to come on. I would have liked to see him a little bit sooner. But apart from that, wholly unsurprised and not even...
not triggered in any way. You are untriggered by the situation.
Completely untriggered. I mean, if you've got a guy...
50 million quid we paid for him. He's come from Simeone. He knows how to play football. What, is the grass cut different in England than it is in Spain? I was about to say Belgium, but I would have fucked that up. These are the things that are on Twitter right now, Toby. These are the things that I'm reading. You know, Mikel Arteta out. We should have got Ancelotti. You know, I don't know whether that's all solely based around the manner with which we played or just solely based around people's really untenable expectations of what happens when you bring someone in, when he signs, does his medical in another country, immediately goes on international duty, flies into the country, has one training session, and is then somehow meant to be, you know, this guy who's going to start in a new formation where Arteta's had No time to put the pieces together. And the thing that really bugs me, Toby, is when we look back at previous iterations of Arsenal, especially old Wengerian teams at Arsenal, and we think about the amount of times that we went away to places like City and didn't give them respect and got bummed, went to places like Liverpool and got bummed, Man U and got bummed, Chelsea and got bummed, because we didn't play with the structures and we didn't play with the shapes and we didn't stay in the game for long enough to be able to, I guess, compete and then be able to introduce the style of football that we want to play. I'm unsure where the kind of vitriol towards Arteta has come from. And can I just caveat this by saying I'm not particularly happy with certain elements of it, but I refuse to throw the baby out with the bathwater like so many people are doing. And I refuse to throw the baby out with the bathwater like so many people are doing and immediately just say, I want to return to what was previously the case, which was us going out and trying to play expansive football when we didn't have the players and we couldn't match them player for player on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been there. We have PTSD from that situation. So there's no point going back to that old way of being, which is nonchalantly, arrogantly going and throwing all the players up the pitch and expecting a different outcome. So we had a clear tactic, as we did, I think, the other day against Liverpool as well, was to stay in the game for long enough to have an opportunity or two or three, and then either nick a point or, luckily, nick a win. Now, this absolutely is the game plan, and I think fundamentally was executed. You know, we are playing one of the best possession-based teams there is, one of the best pressing team there is, who, when they do lose the ball, win it back in a blink of an eye. And I think it was our remit to go there and not lose our shape, not, compete for everything, not let men run past you. And I think for the most part, that was executed across the whole team. Unfortunately, the attack wasn't great, but our first priority and the remit from the manager was to not give away too many chances. And I think we did that.
And we will dig into the player performances, but I guess initially I completely agree with you that the game plan here and the game plan against these teams, who I've said over and over and over again, and Arsenal fans pull me up on this and people online pull me up on this, and I will say to them the same thing I say to them every time: fuck off, right? Fuck off and go away. If you want to play FIFA, if you want to go play fantasy football, go play fantasy football. This is real football. We are not necessarily this season at this stage in our rebuild competing with the 1 and 2 spots. If we can go there and nick points in any fashion, they are massive wins. The league,
especially away.
Absolutely. The league that we are playing in is a level below that league, and it's us hopefully trying to scrape into a 4th position, but making sure that we're in the fight for the right positions, that we're at the end of the year, or if other teams fall down, we are well placed to be able to maybe get a position or 2 positions higher than where we currently are in our trajectory. I say this over and over again. Don't forget, this is the same Arsenal team that finished 8th last year with 1 new defender, and now Thomas Partey, who, granted, has had 1 training session. Where I will take a little bit of a step back from that with Mikel Arteta, where I will actually, and I'm not one of these like pro-Arsenal, pro-Mikel Arteta, like I'm going to have my agendas and I'm not going to pull them up on things, because I can see what the game plan was. Like what you said, the game plan is don't lose it, give yourself an opportunity to nick it, give yourself an opportunity and believe that you have the attacking assets that, even though you may be going to a state where you're 70-30 possession, if you keep your shape and if you can frustrate them and if you can draw them in, we should have the quality to be able to take a couple of opportunities and, like you said, nick a goal or nick a win. Here is where I fall down with that with Mikel Arteta, Toby. Once you go a goal down, surely that passiveness has to change to attacking, because, and I understand that we're talking about not letting it go 2 up or 3 up, But if we look at that last 10 minutes of the second half, when we create 3 or 4 opportunities in the last 10 minutes, where Aubameyang comes central, Willian drops deep, Saka goes further up, we very much move to that 4 at the back. Do you not think that there's an element there where perhaps that's the part of the game where you say, no, let's get on the front foot now? Maybe you do throw caution to the wind and bring Thomas Partey on from 60 minutes.
I think it should have happened earlier. However, we were in it, you know, so you can't really argue that much. You know, you had, there were the opportunities there. There was a great save from Edison. There was a couple of headed opportunities from Pepe in particular. So I think, what are you doing?
Huh? Someone's asking me if I want to play golf on Friday.
My God.
I'm listening. I'm listening. Yeah. I have the attention span of a gnat.
Yeah. So anyway, I've lost my train of thought because you completely weren't.
I was just looking down here for 1 second. I am interested, but contrary to popular opinion, Toby, and contrary to my wife, I can do 2 things at once.
Bollocks. So
okay,
so your question was about when we did attack in the last 10 minutes, and you're talking the last 10 minutes of the game, yeah? Not the last 10 minutes of the first half.
Of the last 10 minutes of the first half. I'm saying that when we went a goal down and we turned it on in the last 10 minutes of the first half and we changed the shape, we moved Aubameyang into the middle. That's where I would have liked to have seen us move into more of an attacking system, but we didn't. We went off for the second half and we came back out, and we came back out in very, very structured shape again. That's where I'm saying, even though I understand the Mikel Arteta game plan, I still believe that he should have come out and he should have been more aggressive, because once you're a goal down, and I understand that the concept of not going 2 down or going down in bunches, but once you are a goal down, surely that's then time to say, okay, well, we're a goal down. Let's go and watch us attack. Let's go and watch us give them troubles. And we did when we went forward. We did cause them problems.
Yeah, I disagree, because I think the quality of the opposition, what they want you to do is come out of your shape and come at them. And then they'll just go bang, bang, bang. You know how quick they are. You know how amazing their movement is. You know, the way Raheem Sterling drops in and plays really 360 degrees. And
Riyad Mahrez, worth every cent of that money. What a player.
No, I thought he was very good in the opening stages of the game. You can see his faults as the game goes on. But what Guardiola has trained into him, he could never be fucked defending for Leicester. And this is a guy now that's starting, you know, he's pressing and he's harrying and hassling. So you can see what's expected in that system. But yeah, I mean, look, coming back to the point, no, I don't think so. We did get better towards the end of that first half, but I think you got to manage the game through stages, and I think that's what Arteta sets up to do. So yeah, there was a momentum swing towards the end of the first half, and apart from an excellent Edison save, we would have been one. Yeah. So we would have been 1-1, and then it would have been, everyone would have been praising that game plan for wearing down the opposition and not letting them get away from us. I think there's a consolidation period as well when the second half starts. So we know they're going to come at us, and it becomes another point of see out that first 20 minutes or so. The only criticism I would have is that things looked really stagnant and certain players started tiring, and we still waited just too long, I thought, to make any of those attacking subs.
I felt like that was for fear of coming out of that shape again. And this is where, Toby, there's an ebb and flow with me. You know, as I guess we're analysts. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're not paid to do it, but we are analysing the game.
We're analysts.
Yeah, definitely. Well done, Toby. Way to take a word and make it dirty. Give yourself a gold star. But I guess if we're looking at it and if we're analysing it, I kind of feel like there is some low-hanging fruit for Arsenal fans at the moment, and there is some very easy targets and there's some very easy things to go after. And I think it's very interesting that the same people that were lauding Arsenal as being this amazing team at the end of the season are the people who are pulling them apart for playing passive now. But those games against City, those games against Liverpool at the end of the season, we were playing passive. The difference being that we had, in particular, one player up front who was in goal-scoring form, who seems to have heavily dropped out of form this season, has had 4-0 games. And so far, because of the way that Arsenal fans are, and I don't know if it's the way that football fans are, or it's just the way that Arsenal fans are. We've said this a load of times, we don't do Premier League shows. We're not in other forums with other fans. But it seems to be, like I said, that there is some low-hanging fruit, and Arsenal fans seem to be going after some of that low-hanging fruit without looking at a player or a couple of players who are really, really underperforming this season. And the reason why I talk about that is ultimately the idea of Mikel Arteta playing passive, just to go back for a second to the passive nature of the game, the final piece on this before we move on, Toby. The idea of playing that passive is the idea that you have enough ammunition up front. You have enough strike power, enough technicality, enough finishing ability up front that when those chances come, when those opportunities are made, and that killer ball has to be made, or that killer pass, or that killer shot needs to be made, that when you're playing passive, it becomes so much more important that those players up front are efficient. And that's the word I want to talk to you about, Toby. The complete lack of efficiency from Aubameyang in the first 4 games of this season. Incredibly inefficient, dare I say, lazy, underwhelming against Liverpool. And I feel like this game against City was very similar, almost carbon copies. Now, I understand there's a big call for him to play centrally, but centrally or on the left, don't forget, people are saying, the reason why he played so bad, Toby, was because he wasn't through the middle. But he wasn't through the middle last year, Toby. He scored 25 goals off the left. His efficiency has been awful. His pressing has been awful. His connection with the team, his connection with that left-hand side of the team has been really bad. His running looks down. His pressing looks down. And I think that when you're looking at it, instead of blaming Mikel Arteta and sitting there and saying, this didn't work, I look at it and say there were ample opportunities for Aubameyang and Pepe and Willian, for that matter, to play balls in at times when they didn't execute the ball. All of them, except Willian, and we will get to him later on, had opportunities, had goal-scoring opportunities to play a shot. And yet the one kid, the one guy who looks the most dangerous is a 19-year-old who's come through our academy, who's on, I think he's on 30-odd or 40-odd thousand pounds a week. So the thing I want to ask you, Toby, is, is the low-picking fruit for Arsenal fans at the moment to pick on Hector Bellerin? Is the low-picking fruit for Arsenal fans at the moment to pick on Willian because it's a poor performance and because he's on a lot? But somehow we've managed to shield someone like Aubameyang from any form of negativity. I haven't seen his name brought up anywhere on Twitter.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Do you have to do that so loud? Do you have to make a performance out of opening a fucking beer?
I'm a bartender, baby. Look at me.
Anyway, yes, look at me. So now the one thing with Aubameyang is that he has earned our respect to not be so reactive like a lot of other fans are. So he's banked up a hell of a lot of goodwill for us. We wouldn't have got anywhere close to as a productive season last season without him. So
truth.
Let's just put that before I say anything. Secondly, I think we know he's the type of player that is either going to win the game for you or be a -3 in terms of player performances because he is low touch. He likes to play in front of him. He likes to get in behind defenders. He doesn't like it so much when he is heavily pressed and, there's not a lot of space around him. He wants to be running on the ball or running in behind. He's not going to do a lot in terms of his own technique. All right. What I will say, though, is that there was a rather lethargic performance against Liverpool. There was another lethargic performance against City. The two other players, or three on the left, but the two most contributing players on the left in Tierney and Saka look like they're telepathic in terms of their understanding, their tenacity.
Their work rate.
Yeah, what I was going to say is their desire to win the one-on-one battles. And that's so important because you break down the one-on-one battles all over the pitch and it's not letting your opposing number get the better of you. Now, what's happening, unfortunately, on that left-hand side is there's a lot of good play, but it actually seems to be breaking down a little bit with Aubameyang. And I don't know whether in that lopsided system, Aubameyang actually starts drifting more centrally. Tierney starts overlapping from the left-sided centre-back, and Saka comes inside as well. So I don't think it's that pure, rigid. You know what we always talk about, like football
don't look at it as pegs in holes.
Yeah,
it's
football,
about the areas they occupy.
Yeah, so football isn't Pro Evo or FIFA anymore. You know, it's a fluid system. However, when your system is based on a press from the front three, and you have a disjointed and lethargic attempt at paying lip service to a press.
Walcottian, even Toby, Aubameyang at the start of this season.
Yeah. Well, that's going pretty far with that criticism. So you've got that. Obviously, Willian was playing as a false nine, I think, to disrupt things in terms of that, in terms of a press.
I have something to say on that later on.
Yeah, and then you've got Pepe, who we know struggles from the press, okay, in that particular system. So bringing it all the way back to Aubameyang, yeah, it is a little bit disappointing, and a little bit concerning. However, sometimes players are streaky. He finished last season on a high. He started in the Charity Shield, playing well again. He just hasn't put it together, in the Premier League so far. So I'm not prepared to shit the bed on him, but he is our captain, and captains need to show leadership on the pitch. And I don't think you saw that from him. So that is
I don't think by criticizing him, Toby, it is shitting the bed and saying it's alarm bells. I guess my point was, if you're going to be willing to have low-hanging fruit and have people constantly going after players like Hector Bellerin, and as soon as David Luiz makes a bad pass, they constantly go after them. I think that it would be remiss of us not to dig into the fact that Aubameyang has had, I think, his worst start to a season for Arsenal since being an Arsenal player.
Yeah.
And after almost putting to bed, just quickly, Toby, Manny and I had this conversation after the FA Cup final, and we said, can we now put to bed the idea that Aubameyang doesn't perform in big games? Because there had been a bit of conversation around the fact that he was maybe a bit of a flat track bully and he didn't compete and he didn't do enough in the big games when Arsenal were passive and they were on the back foot. And he put that to bed by taking his opportunities right at the end of the season and bagging quite a lot of goals. Don't forget, he ebbed and flowed. And in our Arsenal end-of-year numbers, he ended up with the most amount of positive points. And he also ended up, I think, like top 4 or top 5 for quantity of negative points. So when he doesn't perform, because he is a low-touch player, he doesn't get the numbers. And so I will agree with you. He's going to pulse throughout different parts of the season. But I just feel like, if we're going to sit there, and it's so easy now for people to start slagging off Willian because they're looking at what we paid for him and they're looking at what he's being asked to do. I just don't want to shield Aubameyang from criticism because there's a bit of a hard-on for him. I said in the fucking, what's it called? The written bit that connects to this, if you click on it.
The comment section.
Yeah, that bit. I said, yo, Pierre, over here, yo, Pierre, where the fuck are you? It's been 4 games and you've really done fuck all. Toby, I want to pick up on something that you kind of spoke about in that, where you said, we're looking to a 19-year-old to provide us the spark and to Kieran Tierney to provide us the spark. And this is something that I picked up on as well, so I find it really interesting. Look, granted, almost all of us at the ArseBros, we've all given Saka positive 3 points in this game. And the vast majority of us have found either a positive 1 or a positive 2 for Tierney, which goes into what you said, Toby, that it may have broken down a little bit in that left channel with Aubameyang, because for those guys to score so well, you would expect that the guy who's meant to be linking up with them would have had more opportunities than what he did.
Well, he did. He gave the ball away. It broke down with him. And then he also, when we did get opportunities, it also broke down with him.
I also think he lacks I also think he lacks the technical passing. I think those two are so much more technical than him that when it all gets very close, I actually think he lacks a little bit of the technical passing to be able to link up with them. But the thing that I want to ask you, Toby, do you think that because someone like Saka has no scar tissue because he's such a young player and he's so full of confidence, that he is almost more willing to try in the knowledge that he might lose, whereas it looks a little bit to me with Aubameyang that he's only willing to try if the risk isn't there for him, that he's not going to lose the ball and have to track back? Because for me, Saka, he's on the ball, he gets in the hole, he'll beat 2 people, beat 3 people, he'll ride the challenges, and he's creating something out of a willingness to break the structure. Saka was the only guy who was willing to break the structure. So again, as we're talking about Aubameyang and we're talking about Saka, does that mean that we might be in a position where Aubameyang is being coached out of fluidity?
I think youth always has less scar tissue or baggage. So I think playing on instinct is the best part of football. That's where football's easy, when it's instinctual. So when you've got the physique and the motor and the speed and the desire that comes with youth, whereas when you're at the other end of your career and you've had things coached out of you because everything is so structured these days, and quick caveat, that's why football was more fun 20 years ago, but it's just, leave that there. I think there is an element of truth with that. That lack of fear is what drives that player forward. And, you've got probably less fatigue. I'd like to say as well, no one's picked up on it, but in the commentary in the Liverpool game, Aubameyang did tweak something. And I reckon he's been carrying that since then. And since then, he's gone on to international duty as well. So, yeah. So anyway, just that as a thought.
He may very well be a player, Toby, that has to be at 100 to be effective because he is so low touch. So, even if he is, down at 85 or even 90, you might see him just not as explosive. But you definitely agree. It's a lack of scar tissue with Saka. He's been picked in the England team. He's riding high. He's in a state where he's fearless, Toby. Do you know what Saka is? He's drunk 9 beers and there's a guy who's a lot bigger than him in the pub and Saka don't give a fuck, right? Saka's like, what are you looking at, motherfucker? Like, I will fuck you up. And it's not going to be until someone smashes him that he realizes he's not that big.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing on top of that fantastic analogy? Thank you. Is that I have a feeling in Arteta's system that left wing back is given a little bit more freedom to try something on. Do you remember AMN, his last game? He was actually the one that lost the ball the most times, but he was the one willing to try something in that final third. So
are you saying that may be the least structured position on the pitch?
Yeah. So I think the right side holds more, and that's why Willian plays over that way. I realise Pepe played there this game, but Hector doesn't go as far forward. So I think we have a predominantly left-sided bias attack, and that allows Tierney to overlap and play as a pseudo fullback, even though he's playing out of central defense. So we just come across and then set up in that way, if that makes sense.
Toby, let's just talk a tiny bit of tactics quickly before we move on to, I guess, some of the more negative aspects, some of the more negative players. When the team lists were released, it was assumed by both pundits, commentators, and the world of Twitter that this was Aubameyang playing out the middle, that we would most likely see Willian off the left, Pepe off the right. It ended up being Willian out of quite an old-fashioned false 9, I kind of want to say. In my opinion, Toby, I kind of feel like Man City ended up forcing that with the way that they played. that Willian was meant to be in a false nine. And for me, I think he was actually meant to drop in, congest the midfield, and Pepe and Aubameyang were meant to go further beyond and almost be like a two up front. And for me, it was almost a little bit of a throwback to Unai Emery's like 4-2-2-2 in possession was kind of what it was meant to be, with Willian that little bit further forward and Xhaka much further forward, with Ceballos sitting deeper to release with better passing. It didn't work out like that. It ended up being Willian playing as a pretty ineffectual striker. I was just interested with how you saw that, how you saw the decision, and really interested in what you thought the game plan was with that from a tactical perspective, regardless of whether it ended up being effective or not.
I have no fucking idea why he was selected in that position.
But no one does.
To be honest. So I'm not going to try and pull it out of my butthole and think, try and sound overly intelligent like I understood what was going on.
Do you agree with what I said, that it was probably meant to be more of a 10 with the two going further and coming in a bit more, pincering a bit more, and it just didn't work out that way?
It makes a lot of sense when you put it like that, and I hadn't actually considered it. When I saw it, it was because maybe he would do a better job at harrying and pressing the defence than Lacazette.
I don't think he did a great job of doing that.
No, well, neither do I. That's the thing. That's the thing. That pace that's needed to close down that space, I actually didn't think he had it. Now, I've never had a huge problem with Willian's pace before, but I think that's because he's a fast dribbler. He's quick on the ball rather than his overly quick sprint speed. Yep. So I think it didn't work because of that. So my assumption was that he was there to harry their defence, and you've basically now got three players up top that don't harry their defence. So I don't think they had a huge amount of pressure playing out from the back. And I think that's a bit of a huge problem for us. Because
especially when you've got someone with the passing ability of Edison, which was outstanding, absolutely outstanding in this game.
So I think that's kind of an issue for us, and I think that's something Arteta is searching for, because we clearly play very structured in our setup. So we play three at the back, we play two deep-sitting central midfielders who I am convinced every week are tasked to manage a zone and not go beyond that. That's their role.
I thought that was a tactical change this week, though, Toby, because that is the highest I've ever seen Xhaka play consistently for an entire game. Xhaka was pushed right up, almost as high as he used to sit in Wenger teams when he played more as a high eight, hitting final third entry balls. And incidentally, Toby, one of the better games I've seen Xhaka play in quite a while as well.
Yep. Well, I didn't see what you're alluding to in terms of how high he was playing, because I saw his defensive contributions.
With the ball.
More than anything.
Higher. So when we were on the ball, he got way higher. Yeah.
And played a couple of, there was one lovely through ball in particular that we fluffed that opportunity. It was very good from memory. My appreciation of Xhaka's game in particular was his stand-up defending against excellent dribblers in Sterling and Aguero, that he stood up and defended sort of Maitland-Niles style and got a block in both times when they were on the shot. I thought his game management was very good because everything was so frantic with City, playing for the foul and going down and getting the free kick and just slowing everything down and enabling Arsenal to reset shape, because, that it was all about our defensive structures on this game. And I thought his manoeuvring and movement of the ball was quite good. So I actually thought
I thought the angles that he cut with his passing were really good. He didn't play straight balls. He played a lot of balls in behind on good angles for people to run onto, and actually helped with us building momentum instead of, I guess, what you had seen in that same role from El Neni, which was very much backwards and sideways. Toby, but in saying that, it seemed like a bit of a role reversal with him and Ceballos. So with the ball, Ceballos got less far forward and Xhaka went further forward. Without the ball, they both sat a little bit deeper. And one of the most ineffective performances I've seen from Ceballos in an Arsenal shirt since that kind of like period of time pre-COVID close down last season when he had kind of fallen out of it. And what I got the feeling was that Ceballos had been tasked with being deeper to take the ball off of the back three because he was more technical in his passing and going to be more press resistant. That was the reason why I thought he ended up deeper. But it was horses for courses for me because by giving up Ceballos deeper, it meant that the link-up play, especially down the right, was really made redundant, really made redundant. And it kind of highlighted, again, Bellerin's lack of motor to go beyond Pepe. But you and I have also spoken about this so many times that Pepe and Bellerin, I cannot remember a Pepe-Bellerin performance that has made them both look good. At the same time, I don't think that there's a synergy there with the areas that Pepe wants to run into. I feel Pepe always wants to come inside, and I feel Bellerin always wants to come inside, and it pinces up and congests that channel. Whereas we've said before, I think when you play AMN on the right and Pepe on the right, Pepe goes inside and AMN has the athleticism to go past him, which drags defenders out, which gives Pepe space in the middle. But just quickly, I've rabbled again. Just your thoughts on Ceballos, your thoughts on that position, on that deeper role, and your thoughts on now that we're kind of seeing a few different things, how a three would work. How a three would work and how you think a three would work.
Okay. Firstly, I'll try and like decipher as I go.
Yeah,
your three
questions in one.
Ceballos, I didn't have too much of a problem with this game. I realize he didn't go as forward as much as you may have liked, but I felt like he buzzed around. He did enough defensively, which was quite good. And he certainly kept possession in tight places and just cycled it, which is his main job. I don't know how many times I have to say on this podcast, we overload the wide spaces. We don't play through the middle. So
we overload the left.
Our central midfield is about holding a space and cycling. That's what we do. So I didn't have too much of a problem with his game. My only criticism of him in this game was probably a lack of mobility compared to the dynamism of a City, who just everything is always turned up to 11 on the app. Like everything they do is in fast forward. So I think whilst he's good at maintaining possession, he just lacks that little bit of dynamism athletically, as does Xhaka. To really progress the ball forward. Now, part two of your long-winded question.
Part two. How would you build a three?
Well,
so I'm thinking. What I'm thinking.
Well, how about you let me answer the question?
No. But I'm trying to put
instead
another layer
of you
on top
asking it and then
I'm thinking left.
Yourself.
I'm thinking left, right, middle, and what attributes each of those positions needs to have, and how we would apply those attributes with our players.
Well, can I answer the fucking question?
Yeah, answer the fucking question, champion.
I would have Partey on the right, Ceballos on the left, Xhaka sitting deeper and dropping back into like what could be a back three out of possession. All right. Then you put Saka left and Tierney left because they have a great combination. It provides Saka the opportunity to use more of his attacking skills in that zone. And you have Aubameyang just as a fucking finisher. Now, what you probably need is a bit more pressing from Pepe on the right in order for that to work. So that's the way I see a 4-3-3. So it would be, in my head, it would be a 4-1-2-3 or a 4-1-2-1, if that makes sense.
My question for that is if Xhaka has been found out as being quite one-footed, quite not press resistant, that him receiving the ball in that deeper role, this is just the thought process I'm starting to have looking at it. So if Ceballos has to receive the ball in the deepest role, which it looks like he is, because Xhaka doesn't have the technicality to pass with both feet. He's quite one-directional, and he actually looks like he's more comfortable pushed up a little bit further up the pitch in possession. He looks more comfortable not taking the ball off the back foot, being panicked. We've spoken about him not only being not press-resistant, but not stress-resistant. And I think that Ceballos is press-resistant and is stress-resistant. So what I'm thinking is there a way that we can actually can these three be interchangeable enough that under pressure when playing out from the back, you're going to have someone like Ceballos come deeper and Xhaka go further up? Are we good enough? Are we expecting that Mikel Arteta is good enough that maybe this doesn't have to be a round circles, round pegs in round holes kind of outlay, and that you do need more technical people receiving the ball off the back foot? Would Xhaka be someone who's going to be deep out of possession, meaning he's going to be better defensively out of possession, a better stand-up defender definitely than what Ceballos is? And then in possession, Ceballos is going to be the guy who takes it off the back four and then uses that technicality to move it?
Look, I don't know. I feel like that's too complicated, and that's a lesson waiting for disaster. Lesson wait. I don't know. Anyway, that is
who goes
something,
and who stays. I guess
that is something that could fuck up, and then you're left with a giant hole to run through. So I think the way we play, you have a certain zone, you don't leave it. I don't think Xhaka is as bad as you're making him out to be, because it's the players around him that you can distribute to. I know he's quite one-footed and all of that, but he does play a quarterback role anyway. So I don't think anything would really change that way. You would just have more running either side of him, which I think would be a good thing.
And now, I guess with the three, more options for him to pass to in dangerous areas.
Of course. Yeah. So now we do have pretty good distribution from our defenders as well. I was quite impressed with Gabriel again. We know we have David Luiz there, and I was sad to see Rob Holding go down, because I thought he'd been one of our better defenders. But I think Luiz
hamstring tightness apparently.
I think Luiz did fine. I think we all expected Luiz to drop into the middle, but Gabriel didn't lose his spot, because that's been the way he was training. So that was a positive. And look, when Partey came on, I actually thought he wasn't quite up to speed yet. I expected to see this lightning fast dynamo.
Quite lumbering, wasn't he?
I realize he's a huge man and a massive unit, which is excellent. That's what we need for our team. But he didn't seem up to the pace of the Premier League just yet. And lo and fucking behold, maybe that's why he didn't get thrown into the Lions' den against Man City away.
Yeah, the difference in pace between Spain and England is massive, and City are well known for being one of the most hyper-pressing, fast ball movement teams. So I guess it buys into the stupidity of everyone else. Toby, it would be remiss of us not to have a conversation about Hector Bellerin. Now, I very tentatively sent you a message saying I thought Hector was pretty good, despite all of the ArseBros, Mike, Manny, and Ryan, all blowing up. In another group with another couple of podcasters, Mr. Arsenal, Ryan from Mr. Arsenal, he's shit. Dan Potts from Same Old Arsenal, he's absolute shit. And occasionally, Toby, I will send you something in private, and you will come back to me and you'll say, no, I actually agree with you. You're not insane. Had Hector not have done the giant Mustafi slide, I think it was in about the 80th minute, I may have had Hector for, if not positive point, in the mix for positive points. I thought he was pretty good. I thought he was pretty robust. I thought he was coming back to fitness. And I don't think necessarily that it is completely his fault that he's not effective going forward. I kind of think we're so lopsided towards the left that the right can't do the same thing without massively exposing every part of us, like one part has to sit. So I'm just interested, because I know from so much Twitter and so many of our friends who we podcast with that you and I may be the only two who thought that he actually had a pretty good game. So I wanted to know your thoughts on Hector in this game and why you thought that he wasn't awful.
I think if you're looking at moments, I can only think of two. And sometimes they're the things that stick in your head. So the first moment was an opportunity for him to just get on the outside and whip a ball in first time. And he took the cut, slowed it down, and then passed backwards. So that was a frustrating point where, you know, when the game is at pace like that, if you whip something in, someone just needs to get a foot on the end of it. You know, you could have a defensive own goal, something like that. The other moment that I think that everyone's referring to, I think he misjudged a ball over his head or a through ball or something of the like. And then I think Sterling, am I correct? Absolutely sat him on his ass because he was at full pelt trying to make up for his defensive.
He Mustafi'd the shit out of it.
But if you put yourself in that position, if you've made an error and you're charging back at full pelt to make up for that error, and you're in a moment where you're either going to do a last-ditch lunging effort to defend the cross and get a block in, or that player is going to have the quality to stop it on a 5-cent piece.
Raheem Sterling is a quality player who is good enough to stop it.
Anyway, he ended up sliding on his ass. So they're the moments that I can see why he got the negative for. For me, where I thought he was quite good today was that he did his defensive job reasonably well. Apart from that, I thought he looked more robust to me. And I like the way that he comes in and connects with midfield. You know, you're right. We don't have that overlapping fullback on that side, but I have a feeling that is part of a remit as well, you know. So Hector is better at receiving the ball. We always play out on the right-hand side, if you've noticed.
Yep.
So I think he's more comfortable in that because he's technically fairly secure and he comes into midfield and is part of the build-up play. So I think this is all structured. So I think we can get a little bit carried away with the fact that we all love AMN because he's an all-action hero. You know, he's a homegrown talent. I mean, AMN is just about my favorite player. So I'll caveat that before I say what I'm going to say. But he's probably less reliable on the ball. He can be more dangerous, but he does give
more likely to give it up in tight areas.
So, you know, and then on top of that, you've also got combinations that don't work. So he doesn't seem to work so well with Pepe, who also doesn't like going on the outside. You had Ceballos, who was sort of less attacking on that right-hand side as well. And maybe Willian, if he comes over from the centre and joins that style. So I found that right-hand side a bit more dysfunctional. And I actually thought Hector was quite good overall. And I also don't think he's tasked to really go beyond that much. He's part of our security blanket as such. So I'm going to agree with you. I think there's an element of our frustration as Arsenal fans goes towards certain players. Dare I say, Brother Ryan and anyone but Xhaka.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, his giant erection for El Neni, and then El Neni has a 2 out of 10 game, but it's still better than Xhaka. Yeah,
so I think our ire is drawn towards certain players. For me, a lot of the time, it was our fuzzy-haired North African / French friend who is now at Hertha Berlin. He's someone who drew my ire. So I think as fans, we've all got those players that we tend to go to when we want to scapegoat someone.
And don't get me wrong. I have negatived Hector several times this season with negative numbers.
We all have.
I'm not saying that I haven't been on the Hector bandwagon. I just found it surprising this week that all of our other ArseBros managed to find negative points for him when I looked so much elsewhere for the failures. And one of the things I thought was quite good about Hector this week is I thought this was as robust as I'd seen him for quite a while. He sort of got into things. I thought he put his body in there.
I thought he's starting to look slightly bigger, slightly fitter.
Yeah, he played a really beautiful one-time ball. It didn't come off, but him and Pepe got close together on the inside right channel, and Hector played like a first-time open foot slid ball for Pepe. Pepe didn't run onto it. But yeah, I just didn't think. Look, I didn't think that Hector was amazing. I thought that he was quite solid, and I thought that he did his job. And I just found it really interesting that everyone else took a great deal of time out of their day to say he's fucking shit, he's fucking done.
Before I'd spoken to you, I flicked through, and this was this morning after I watched the game. I flicked through our group, and I couldn't believe the amount of shit that Hector was getting. I was
Why
like,
it's so interesting when I said to you, like, Hector's not that bad. You're like, no, not at all. I thought he was quite good. And I was like, we're the only fucking two people who don't think that he was.
But I think
awful.
I think with the way we do things, and I'm not saying everyone in the group does the positive and negative points per game, but are you tapping on the microphone?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was tapping away.
Yeah, ADD motherfucker. So yeah, okay. So that's where I was at before you distracted me. Was that I think when we do have to negative point players as part of our weekly job, let's say, is that sometimes we do look at moments and we remember those moments, and that's why someone can have a relatively decent game or whatever and make one or two errors, and that's what sticks in our mind.
Absolutely. Look, Toby, it was a
boring as fuck. Have we said that?
Yeah, and we said that last week, funnily enough, as well. And I think we said the week before against Liverpool that they were boring games. So as an Arsenal fan,
front three for me. If we're going to criticise.
As an Arsenal fan at the moment, Toby, it's quite hard. I think Arsenal fans need to come to terms with the fact that by nature, a back three is quite a passive approach to football. It's all about creating a small amount of opportunities, and those opportunities are being executed by the players at the front line. That's why I so heavily went after our creative players this week in my negative points, rather than looking at the defensive players and pulling apart Bellerin. And I was like, no, that's your job. That's what you're meant to do.
And can we also say we had 4 clear-cut opportunities. So we might not create as much as we used to, but in terms of, like, if you want to use the statistic of XG, I would say we had 4 relatively high opportunities to score.
I think City had about 6 or 7. There was a couple of good saves in there from Leno.
Yeah,
but it wasn't so blown out. Ours just came in patches, which is what happens when you play passive. You get moments in games where you finally pull them out of shape, and then it all changes. Look, Toby,
I was going to say you had Saka, who it was a good save, but
you had Oba, who was onside, and had he finished that, VAR would have looked at it and said, "No, he's onside."
Yep. And then you had 2 from Pepe. So
the header, the really bad header from Pepe. But I mean, I wrote in my comments, I'm like, he's not there to fucking smash like big ballsy headers in. But it was a great ball and a great opportunity for him to get his head on. Anyway, look, Toby, my potatoes are burning. I can smell them burning, and I can also see them burning now as the smoke is starting to make its way through the house. So I'd better wrap this up for safety reasons more than anything else. But we'll be back next game. Don't really remember who's playing, but that's what I do most of the time. And
might be Man U.
Might be Man U. We should go do them, I would think. I hope we play a little bit more expansive. And Toby, hopefully, a full week with our new player, and we might be able to see him get on the pitch. Who knows? But perhaps. As always, Toby, thank you so much. As always, listeners, you can follow us, all of us, at the ArseBrothers. So at the ArseBrothers is the communal Twitter. So if you want to follow everything that Manny produces, things that Mike produces, I produce, Toby produces, you've now got Jerome and Corey, who are doing the show with Mike, and they're now ArseBrothers as well. You've got Ryan. You can catch all these guys on Same Old Arsenal. Ryan, Manny, Dan Potts, all over at Same Old Arsenal now, doing their stuff with us. I'm on Clock and Talk. You can catch me on Fridays with Darren and Liam, Groning Guna. And Toby, you can catch here because he doesn't have the ability to do multiple things at multiple times. So, Toby, you're kind of like a one-woman man here on the Arse Bros. You know, you dip your wick one place at one time.
I can't be fucked with Twitter for a start.
Yep.
And you can catch me on the ArseBrothers Monthly. So I do have more than one purpose.
It's true. Toby
I'm just a little slow.
Toby is a missionary man when it comes to podcasting, but trust me, when it comes to life, he's an arse-eating cunt. Good night.